Imagine a cockpit so innovative, it's shaking up the cycling world. Flite Deck's groundbreaking handlebar technology is turning heads, but it's also stirring up a lot of controversy, and not necessarily in the best way. Let's get into it.
Welcome to episode 8 of Recreational Rider to Racer podcast series. Josh and I are both recreational riders on this transformative journey to becoming racers. So this week we are just going to dive right into our main discussion.
Let's go.
We've both been sent this product. It could be cutting edge. It could be a market disruptor for cycling tech.
Yep.
We've seen it on socials. We've seen it on a few other podcasts have talked about it in the last few weeks. So it's definitely a very, very trending, albeit I think you could make a very firm argument that it's kind of controversial. There's a lot about it. Is it needed?
Yeah.
We are talking about the proposed Flite Deck handlebar system.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, try to describe that to our listeners who are not watching this and can't see the picture on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, it essentially is a really slick display that it's almost like if you fully integrated your Garmin or your Wahoo into your actual handlebars and turned that into a display, that's kind of what it would look like, to where it almost has this like mini display screen, almost like a phone essentially, but it looks so seamless with the handlebars.
Okay.
So it displays your power, your cadence, your speed, even has the map technology on there, including weather. So it has all the things that your head mount would have, but it is all just integrated into your handlebars. And so their claim is that the cockpit hasn't been updated in a very long time. And so what they've done is essentially just integrated everything into that handlebar completely.
Similar to newer cars have all the buttons on the steering wheel and all the features, like the smart features of a steering wheel. Okay, so
kind of like the Tesla where you have the iPad display, and it's like, to me, it is really, and it's interesting. The two founders are like both have backgrounds in the car industry where they're both engineers.
Porsche and BMW.
Yeah, and so it actually, when you brought that up, I was like, oh, that makes sense in terms of the design of this, because it does look, to me, it kind of reminds me of more of like that Tesla model. It's like, oh, this is really sleek. This is interesting from a visual. But when I looked into this further, and I think we'll get into it, is like there's definitely a lot of things in this specific handlebar. On the surface, you think, oh, that's really cool. Love the idea. But then when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, you're like, oh, actually, I don't know if I love it as much as I initially thought.
I'll take a much harder stance. I agree with you.
Yeah.
When I first saw a picture, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
As I started kind of looking into it, I would say overrated. I think I have a hard time justifying who this is for and who would get real good use out of it.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the price, because that to me was also like anything else, right? Starting with any price point immediately sets you into this, like, okay, who's actually going to pay this much money for this? And honestly, the Flite Deck, they've listed their handlebars. They have 3 different models, and the low end model ranges at $1,700, and then their top end ranges about $3,500. Now, I would imagine that their top end, you get obviously more customization, and maybe you get more
bigger screen space.
I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like it's very clear on the website as to what you're getting more of. But immediately from that price point, that's a lot, and that's almost double compared to even our handlebars that we rock, So
okay, so $1,700 for the low end model, $3,500 for the top end.
Yeah.
I would have to guess that there's something to do with a level of carbon layup in there for like a weight thing, because that's kind of how bikes have their different models. A lot of bikes have their carbon layup models. So I would think that'd be part of it.
Could be. That's a great point. But I mean, even compared to a Roval Rapide, I mean, just from the price point standpoint, it's like, you know, for the cockpit that integrates with the head unit, the Roval Rapide runs about $600. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that's a very top end handlebar. Yeah. You know, from a cockpit standpoint, it's like, that's a lot of money for a cockpit. And these guys are saying their cockpit is not only like double that, but it's like even their top end model is it's out of the, you know, it's well beyond so what most people might want to pay.
So let's see, there's three things you're getting with this. You're getting a carbon handlebar that looks super aero and super clean.
Yep.
You're getting a multi-touch screen super bike computer.
Yep.
That that the competitors have those, but it looks like a pretty massive display.
Yep.
And you're getting a built-in integrated light.
Correct.
Out of the front.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised with that. I think that's actually a cool touch.
That's like cool.
It's a cool feature.
But so a one-stop shop to charge your computer and your light. You just plug it in and it goes.
Yeah. Apparently they claim up to 30 hours of battery life. Somewhere in that range. They said on their website 20 to 30 hours of battery life.
So the new
yeah, what do you think about that claim in and of itself?
No way. So the new Wahoo Ace, the new Wahoo Element Ace is like an iPad Wahoo. It's ginormous. DC Rainmaker did a full review of it.
Yep.
And their claim is 30 hours of battery, and he said he never got it to 20.
Oh.
He said he was 15 to 20 at best.
Okay.
So 30 hours.
That's a stretch.
Think of like the brightness, like maybe 30 hours with you turn off your GPS, you turn off your brightness. It's like probably one of those claims where the background goes dark, but not a full display.
This is like when you're dimming your phone to where you can't even see it anymore.
Yeah,
so maybe you do that on your bike and then it's no longer safe.
Yeah, so maybe 30 hours. It's like when bike manufacturers claim all these aero gains and you're like, what are you basing this on? So like the barest of minimum. So I want to talk about those three elements to it real quick. Okay, so I'm a hard sucker to sell on a one-piece bar and stem. I think they look really cool.
Sure.
But for the amount of money, you're shaving off a few grams.
Yeah.
Not much weight.
I get that.
And then I think when you compare similar touchscreen computers in price and weight. So I looked into this earlier.
Yeah. So the weight was really interesting to me.
Yeah. So, okay. So this one-piece Flite Deck handlebar is 800 grams. That's just under 2 pounds.
It's a lot.
The Roval handlebars, the cockpit, those are 310 grams. That's just around half a pound. And then if we take, with the exception to the new Wahoo Ace, I'm going to choose 3 bike computers that are all within similar size and feature and all have touchscreen capabilities.
Okay.
So the Wahoo Element Roam is, I think you can get for under 500. Okay. And that's 94 grams. The Garmin Edge 1050 is between 500 and 600, and that's 161 grams. And then the Hammerhead Karoo 3, I didn't get a price on that, but it's 118 grams. I would imagine it's pretty comparable with the other two.
Somewhere in that maybe
brands.
Range.
Yeah,
okay.
So we're talking 161 grams is the heaviest, plus 310 grams. So we're coming up on 500 grams.
Okay.
So, and then you throw on a light, which those are heavy, but the only people who ride with lights are people like you and me who train in the morning.
Yep.
Or who commute.
Yeah. And we're not using those in a race.
No. When have you ever done any event with a light on?
Yeah, I haven't.
Like, if you need a light for a race, you should not be racing at that race. I'm sorry. You need to call the organizers and get Tim from Top View to come down and show you how to run a good event, all right?
But what do you think about the total? So when you add those things together, so you add the handlebars and then you add in the head units, I mean, roughly you're getting, I mean, you're still weight-wise, you're still lower on that. But then in terms of even the price standpoint,
weight-wise and price range.
Yeah,
so
you're still lower on both.
The Handlebars, $600 for the really nice new Specialized ones.
Yeah.
And then what I say, $500 to $600 for a really nice computer.
It's like $1,100.
And then a light, like my light is super bright, and it was around $100.
Yeah, I would say the same light. We used to have the same. I think I got mine for like $60. So somewhere in that range, okay. $60, $100.
So what are we at? So
like $1,200.
Okay, so $1,200. Yeah. So that's for top end handlebars.
Yeah.
A top end computer.
Yeah.
And a pretty top end. I mean, mine's like 1200 lumen light. That's bright. I doubt this light's going to be.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be
that bright. And I bet to get 30 hours, you can't even turn the light on.
I like that.
So $3,500 and you're heavier.
Yeah.
That price and function in that sense, I'm a hard no.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and then the other thing too is that it does come with its own app. So to me, that one of the challenges I can immediately see is like when they claim that they have their own app. Now, is that an additional monthly fee that I have to pay for now with this supposed app for this thing to work? So whether that's $20 a month, but that even, so I don't know. That I don't think they say on their website, but in terms of they claiming this would work, you know, with its own app, it's like, that's all great, but the problem becomes more of like, in order to fund an app, it takes a lot of work.
That's a whole nother thing.
So you're going to have to charge people for that. So then you're adding on the cost of like, okay, not only is it $1,700 at the low end, but then you're also thinking somewhere in that, like, I'm now going to have to pay for a separate app.
Do you think that? I mean,
I think they might. I absolutely think they would.
I mean, I don't pay for a Wahoo app to integrate with my Wahoo. I don't pay for a Di2 app. So
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I maybe they won't. But I could also see them doing it. If they're already thinking in terms of like that price point for these handlebars, I could see them also on top of that, maybe throwing on an additional, you know,
I have issue with the touchscreen idea of it. So
yeah,
like it says it's waterproof, and I don't doubt the engineering of it being waterproof. That's not my issue. How many times like our phones are waterproof or to a certain depth, but when they get water on them, the touch displays don't work. Yeah. So that's why a lot of these bike computers that I mentioned are touchscreen, but you read so many reviews of people when they get wet, whether it be sweaty hands or it rains on your ride, and you can't get the touchscreen to work. So like that's why I like a computer with physical buttons.
Those buttons, yeah, it's true.
Because those they work. So what happens when, you know, it's raining and you can't switch around the data that you need because there are no buttons on this thing, or the touchscreen just fails, or
and that to me would be very annoying. Now this would be the same annoyance that I would have because I don't have a touchscreen. You know, I have the 540, you know, Garmin, but it's like it's not a touchscreen. It has the buttons, but it's like that would be my annoyance. The same thing if you went into these other head units that had the touchscreen, I would have that same. I'm with you. I like the buttons just simply based on that. But I want to ask you this question. So who do you think the Flite Deck handlebars are for? So if you broke it down between pros, racers, even recreational riders too, of those categories, who do you think this appeals to?
Dentists. Okay, so
say more.
All right, so going back to pros, I say hard pass no. So a Grand Tour race, how many bike changes do these guys do?
Yeah, they do a lot.
And, you know, because of the, like, cycling now, it used to be you got a flat tire and they would come and change out your wheel. Now they just give them a new bike every time. So,
that's right.
And I've seen pros that swap bikes, and the first thing they grab, if it's not a crash, is their computer. Yeah. And even in a crash, they get up, they grab their computer, they put it on the new mount, and they take off. We saw that in the Netflix documentary with that day that Jonas had a flat and went through like 3 bikes in 2 minutes or something. And he's like grabbing his computer from bike to bike.
That's right. You can't do that with the Flite Deck.
No.
Because you'd have to literally have all your bikes with Flite Deck things on there.
And then what are you going to hop on the new bike and start pairing all your stuff? Yeah. So I say hard pass no on pros because the big thing, so when they switch bikes, they lose their power data. because that's paired to that power meter.
Right.
But I've seen interviews with Matteo Jorgensen where he has talked about when they descend these super technical mountains, they have the map pulled up on their head unit because they want to know where the really sketchy turns are.
Yep.
And so if you have a crash, if you have a bike swap of any kind, even a time trial bike to a climber bike, because there are some time trial stages that start off flat and then hike up to 10% for a few kilometers.
Yeah.
That all of those things are out of the question.
Yeah.
That's not even getting into the sponsorship that all of these teams are sponsored by Garmin, Wahoo, and the SRAM teams with Hammerhead.
Yeah.
So,
well, and then the other thing too with even the pros is weight.
Yep.
Immediately they're going to be like, no, this weighs way too much.
800. I mean, I thought it was, I told Jess this and she was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah. I saw an interview with Jonas 2 years ago and he was talking about the weights when he climbs on his climbing bike. And he's like, yeah, when I'm on a flat stage, I'll use my Garmin, like the bigger screen one. But he's like, but when I'm climbing, I use the smallest screen Garmin because it's like X amount of grams lighter. And Jess was like, there's no way he switches computers for a mountain stage. And I was like, yeah, like they're going for every gram they can get. So
every little thing.
800 grams out of the gate?
Yeah.
No way.
No way. Yeah.
No way.
No way. All right, so let me ask you this then. Do you think it's for maybe guys and gals like us that are racing?
Once again, I got to go no.
Yeah.
So racers, few things come to my mind. Similar thing for crash.
Yes, 100%.
Any type of, so like let's say you crash. So the pro guys crash, they're sponsored, they're getting new equipment. The regular guy who has a job like us, who's paying for his stuff, we crash and two things happen. One, if you damage the bars themselves, so you have to get new carbon bars put on. While you're waiting for your new bars to come in, you have no computer.
Yeah, true.
All right. Similarly, if the computer is damaged and you're waiting for a replacement computer, you have no bars on your bike. You have no handlebars. I also think that a lot of people that race like to race different types of disciplines.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about to me, I have a tri bike.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I actually have two other road bikes.
Yep.
And I used to have a mountain bike. I sold that one because I don't actually need that one. But I could not. I would have to buy a Garmin or a Wahoo.
Go figure. You have to buy a computer.
Purchase a separate one for and I'm like, well, now I'm just spending money that I would have normally spent on just one unit.
Yes. And that's not even throwing out, in the U.S., it's becoming way more popular, gravel riding.
Oh, yeah.
So people have gravel bikes.
True.
And the Garmin, the Wahoos,
You just go...
You pop it on, but it's also, they've got like, some of them, they have like a mountain bike mode for finding good trails.
Yeah.
They have road, kind of finding good road. Like they have GPS, really good GPS stuff built in, especially the Hammerhead. I wouldn't want to take this on a gravel ride where rocks are kicking up, hitting the bars.
That's a great point. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. I would feel wildly insecure about that as well. Because I'm like, I paid a lot of money. I don't want this thing to like hit it and some rock hits and all of a sudden it's like, now the screen's cracked.
I mean, if I crash and I break my Wahoo, I would be really upset. But I would take a little comfort that for less than $300, I can get a replacement Wahoo.
Sure.
Like in a week or two, where it's one, how long is it going to take to get these?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And two, you're waiting on, like your whole system is down if you crash it. Like you've got nothing. You can't throw on. Or how many people go, oh, I got an old Garmin that still works. You can borrow that for like. There's no way that you can just have more than one bike. And a lot of people do because they have a winter bike, especially like a ton of people in Great Britain have a winter specific bike for the rain and the salt and the so you're not going to go swapping that back and forth.
Yeah.
I wonder what's the fit going to be like if you change your fit, then
that would be another factor. Now, do you think though, so you mentioned dentists. So recreational riders.
Okay.
I think this would be, obviously, of the three, this makes the most sense for those that are riding recreational. But where weight, to me, the challenge being like, well, I would say weight is not really the issue. If you're just going, if you don't care about weight necessarily, if you're not a weight weenie, right? So weight's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
And then, but the price is still going to separate a lot of people, even in the recreational category, to where they would say, this is well out of my price range.
I mean, what's an S-Works? 12 grand?
Yeah.
For a specialized top end. So 12 grand and then another 3 for the top end handlebar.
Yep.
And I bet, someone in the comments can be like, no, specialized bikes are, I think they're 14 for some of them now. So
I'm sure.
They were 12 grand like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So
you think this is for dentists, those that have maybe the extra money,
some disposable money. Disposable money for sure.
Yep.
Your forever bike.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Someone who is constantly buying and selling, bikes, not for them. This is for the person. I have purchased this is my big time expenditure bike, and this is the forever bike, and so I'm going to put the dopest handlebars on it I can find.
Yeah.
I think it would also be potentially cool for what's it called, like bike packers.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Like you've got, if the battery life is as good as they claim, and you're on a long venture.
Sure.
I really would like to see this on e-bikes.
Yeah.
I think it's
a good point.
That's the market where, because they've already got some of that data for the battery life of the e-bike and the gears you're in. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I like that take.
So I think that'd be super cool. This
is definitely not for a lot of people, simply based on price. I think it prices out a lot of people very quickly, in which I think I'm sure they're fine with, because it is one of those where it's like maybe you got to pay more, but then you're getting more of that like high end. Hey, you know what? Not everybody can afford this. It is like the S-Works, or where it's like people can afford it, great, but that's more the anomaly than it is for everyday riders.
I think it's one of those things where it tries to solve a problem that doesn't really exist, and then creates more problems. So the biggest thing is, would it be cool to have your computer built into the handlebars of the bike, and does it look awesome? Yes. For all the integration stuff, does it this really sleek thing? Absolutely. But I think it's going to create more problems down the road.
Yeah, based on all the other things.
Based on all the things we just said, I think it creates more problems than solves them.
Yeah. Well, and then the other challenge with this is the way it's funded. And I didn't know this at first. So you actually enlightened me because purely I saw this and I looked at this and thought, oh, this is really interesting. It's very innovative. And I agree with you that exactly what you just said. Very integrated, or very innovative in that way. But the way it was funded was there's two founders, Sabrina Fisher and then Matthias Huber. And both of them have backgrounds in car engineers. And so, it made sense from that standpoint, where they're thinking more in terms of like, this makes sense. What we talked about earlier with the car integration versus the bikes.
This solves some type of problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the challenge is that this Sabrina has funded this and is still currently funding this through her OnlyFans page account, and this is where I can't support it, and this is where it's really controversial because of the way that this is being funded. I think that a lot of people raise their eyebrows to that and say, interesting, why is this the way that you funded this? And their claim is that they had a hard time finding external funders for this.
Okay.
And I get that from a business standpoint. It is hard to get startup funding. It is hard to get venture capital, angel investors, even loans from the banks type of things. But my issue is like, there is still better ways that you could fund things in this, exploiting yourself in this way is something that I would never want any person to do, to have to get to that point to feel like this is the only way I can fund the project that I want to do. So, how do you feel about it?
I look at it more Cade Media did a thing on this, and they were kind of, my take from watching them, kind of where they fell, kind of similar, but like they didn't know how to feel or interpret it. So they were like, it seemed to me like they kind of stayed kind of in the middle. And one of the comments that was made, I thought was interesting, is this good or bad for women's cycling or women's sport in general?
Yeah.
So part of women in sport, a big push has been equal treatment, getting the same or similar type of coverage for women's sports that men's sports get.
Sure.
There's been a big push in women's cycling with the Tour de France Femmes, and making women's cycling and just women's sport in general way more mainstream and followed and enjoyed. We've seen, in other sports, like basketball with Caitlin Clark the last year and a half. So just women, I think the question is, does this set that back by her doing the OnlyFans account and kind of making
women to be objectified versus looked at as terms of like, hey,
professional, good athletes. Yes.
You're an incredible athlete versus them just looking at your body and saying,
right,
oh, this is why I'm here. Yeah.
Now, I mean, on one end, this woman's not a pro. So an argument, someone could argue, well, she's not a pro, so who cares? Which is fine. But do women professional cyclists see this and go, I want to be taken serious for my ability to dominate on a bike, not the way I physically look on a bike to men.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It kind of, I think it's a really interesting. They kind of threw that comment out in jest, but I think it's interesting. Like it definitely kind of adds to that potential controversy around it.
Yeah. And I could see this for both guys or girls. If
I'm never going to buy one for the thousands of reasons I stated before.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's fun to do that. I didn't get to that and look at this and go, oh, because of this, I'm never going to buy one. I looked at the product itself and tried to give the product a fair shot, and the product itself does not interest me.
Yeah.
So whether it was funded through whatever means, I'm not going to want something like this for all the reasons that I said.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I agree with you.
So that's my take on it.
Yep.
As far as the funding side of things.
Okay. What do you guys think of Flite Deck and the controversial funding means? Even the tech itself. We'd love to hear what you guys think. Drop a comment below, and hey, while you're there, hit that subscribe button.
Okay, before we get into our next segment, we want to give a huge shout out to Road ID for not only supporting our podcast, but letting us film right here at their headquarters. If you're a cyclist, runner, or someone who wants peace of mind while out on the road, Road ID has you covered. Their medical IDs provide crucial info in case of an emergency, and they look great too.
Yeah, they do.
Do yourself a favor, check out roadid.com and grab one today. Big thanks to the team here at Road ID for their support of the channel. We also want to do a big mention to that Kentucky Open Road Racing Series is partnering us this year to bring you an exclusive deal. If you're looking to race in the Kentucky Open Road Racing Series this season, use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout for 15% off your registration. Whether you're a seasoned racer or just getting started, Coors has something for every level cyclist. This year, Coors is teaming up with N+1 Bikes to bring one lucky racer a chance to win a Cannondale Super 6 Evo 4. Enter all 4 races to quadruple your chances and come have a blast with us while we rip through the Kentucky countryside. Don't miss out. Sign up today and save. Head over to KentuckyORRS.com and use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout. That's BESPOKE15.
Yeah, and we're going to have Gary on next week, so that's going to be super exciting.
That'll be fun. He has an awesome story.
He does have an awesome story.
I'm excited to sit down with him.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, so now we're moving into our segment of cycling trends of the week. And so this is part of the show where we break down trending things that are happening in cycling in this week. And did you see this? I sent this over to you.
So I did see it.
That's true. I already defeated my question. Jonas having 150 millimeter crank arm. that he was rocking. What do you take of this?
I did look at it.
Yeah.
I did a brief look at it. I mean, that does seem to be the trend right now. Is these? Yeah. We saw it with Tade. He got a lot of coverage last year for his shorter crank arms. I think he had 165.
Yeah.
So right. For those that don't know, I am 5'10". I think you're probably close to my height.
Probably 5'10".
On a traditional, yeah, of course, it's okay because I'm probably like 5 to 10 pounds lighter. So
sure.
On a traditional, let's say 56 frame bike or a bike that would fit someone of our height, cranks are around 172.5 millimeters.
Standard.
Yeah, it's like the standard. So we are seeing pros with the same height as us going to shorter cranks.
Yeah. What are the benefits of a shorter crank?
As I understand, it allows your hips to open up more, to get more power. And it, like, I don't fully understand what it means to quote open your hips up more, but it's something to do with with the stance on the bike and the power and kind of the allowing them to turn over quicker to also increase your cadence. Okay, that's a big thing too. Is
would you think it would drop you into more of like a slightly more aggressive position on the bike in terms of opening up your hips?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say you're definitely in a because in order to go, like I have a friend, he did it. He went to 165s and he had to raise his saddle a few centimeters up to kind of match. So he's already by that just going up. So that's bringing him up and he's still low at the bars. So he's more aggressive in that sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think the higher cadence also makes sense too. And obviously, the pros, I mean, they're, from that perspective, cadence is extremely important. We've seen Tade where he's rocking somewhere in the 90s cadence, sometimes even 100. And so that, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I obviously would be curious myself to go to a smaller crank arm just to see the benefits of that as well. Now, will I do that right away? Probably not, because I'm already spending too much money on my bike stuff. But to me, it is very appealing. I can understand that people would say, well, if I do this, could that give me another advantage? And it seems like if the pros are doing it, there's definitely an advantage to this. So I think it's exciting.
I'm curious to see. I think everybody's curious to see a healthy Tade and a healthy Jonas this year, taking every marginal gain they can and just squaring off at the tour.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to our second trend of the week.
Yeah.
This popped up on one of my feeds this week, and it's says Geraint Thomas criticizes Red Bull, Roglic, and basically half the cycling world for basically choosing to not go to races that feature Tade and Jonas. So
because Roglic he's just doing the
Giro.
The Giro, and he's not doing the Tour.
So
that's crazy.
So Thomas, I think he kind of said it as a joke in a sense.
Yeah.
Because he's got a teammate on there, but he did not back off of Roglic. So he backed off a little bit of the whole peloton. He's like, okay, I get you target certain races that you want to do the best in.
Yeah.
But he said it doesn't make sense for Roglic because the whole reason he went to Bora was so that he could try to win a Tour. That's why he left Jumbo.
That's why you're there.
That's why they're paying him huge money because they have said, we want to build a Tour de France champion.
Yeah.
And so I get what he's getting at with that. I also agree. I kind of agree with him where it's, you want to, I think you'd want to race the best. And it would suck if you're always losing to these guys. But, but if you want to race the best, you got to go where the best are going to be. Yeah. And he's like I said, he's already won the Giro. So what does it benefit him? Could he win the Giro again? Sure. But it's like,
square up against the best.
Square up against the best. You want to go toe-to-toe with the best fighter. Yeah. And we love it when the champions all come to the same venue or event and square off against each other.
Well, and it's like, even there was I saw a clip related to this where Vanderpool was asked about him seeing Tade on the cobbles. And he was like, yeah, I've seen it. And they was like, what do you think of it? And he's just like, yeah, I don't think much of it. Didn't keep me awake at night. And he's like, and they're like, well, what do you think about him competing? It's like, yeah, he's another great competitor out there. And
Yes.
that's like, I just love that take, because it's just like, yeah, he's another competitor. He's obviously very good, but it's like, he's not backing down from it. You know, he's not saying like, oh yeah, well, it looks kind of crazy, or man, I don't know if I could. It's like, no, he's just like, yeah, it's not keeping me awake at night. And I love that. That's the competitor that I'm like, Vanderpool. Absolutely, man. Yeah. It's like, you know, go toe to toe with the best.
Yep.
If Todd is there, great. He's a tough competitor, but you're also competing to win, right? So it's like, yeah, I agree. I actually agree with Gary, and I can understand where he's coming from that perspective.
And even in Tade's not acceptance speech, he didn't win an award, but when he won the Tour last year and he gave his speech, because Primoz had to bail out because of a crash.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, it really stunk not having him able to finish this tour with us because he's such a great competitor.
Yes.
So even the best in the world recognizes Primoz as this guy, he elevates our game.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
And it makes a lot of sense. And it's like, if you're Tade and you're going into the Tour de France, it's like you want all of the best competitors there, because if Jonas isn't showing up, if Roglic isn't, now obviously Jonas is, but it's like if you had other guys that weren't showing up that you're like, oh, well, this isn't going to be there as competitive or as fun. And it's like, I would want all the people there to be like, yeah, give me your best shot, you know? So, and I think that goes both ways, but that's maybe not the mentality that maybe Garrett's thinking that other guys are.
Well, I think one more point to add on this. So the Tour is a long way away.
Yeah.
There's a great deal of painstaking efforts to stay healthy and to stay safe. So the last 2 years, we've seen the top 2 riders have bad crashes weeks before the Tour that jeopardize their Tour. And so and in February say, oh, I'm not going to go, those guys are there, you know, that's, you know, there's a lot of variables that could happen where he could still easily podium the Tour. Yeah. And if something happened to those guys, not that you want that on your competitor, your opponent, but it doesn't take him out. You know, he was winning until the second to last stage back in 2020 the year that Tade won the first Tour. Yeah. He was winning up until the day before the last stage.
It's true.
So it's like anything. It's
not like he's not good.
Anything can happen, and it definitely sucks to see him kind of go, whatever. Now, I mean, is there a whole ton of stuff behind the scenes that we don't know? Probably, but for Geraint Thomas, who's kind of more a respected pro in the Tour,
pro forever,
been a pro forever, for him to have that stance, I think there's some merit to what he's saying.
Definitely carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so our next segment, let's dive into our last week of training. So I'm just curious, kind of kicking this off, since we had Tim on last week, he talked a lot about bike handling. Mm-hmm. And just, I'd love to hear from you. What was the takeaway for you in terms of, you know, at least I was thinking about our training this week in terms of bike handling.
Okay.
Getting out.
So that's what you took away from it.
I took away some of the bike handling from our conversation, but I would just love to hear from you. What was one thing that you took away from Tim from last week from that?
The part when he talked about getting outside versus the trainer.
Yes.
So this week it's warmed up quite a bit. We've had a very odd national weather week where it's warmed up, but last week it was crazy cold, and it's been cold for the longest time.
Yeah.
There is a part of me where when I, in the winter, go outside, I feel like Rocky from Rocky IV when he fights the Russian. So guys that are in their basement.
Here we go with the Rocky thing again.
Yes. Okay. So guys that are in their basement on these trainers, they've got these awesome indoor setups with all this tech and this really sweet.
Yep.
I think of like when the Russian is like, has all the top end stuff, but then you got freaking Stallone out there running up the side of a mountain and just being like, that guy's BA. And that's how I feel. Am I training as efficiently? I don't know. But when I get out in the cold, I feel like there's a mental edge where when you show up to the line to race, it's like I know the mental fortitude I've put in to get here and the suffering that I've made it through. Whereas like if I can withstand 20-degree temps why can't I push myself when this guy surges, and why can't I go with him?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. With that, just that mental toughness plays a huge role into racing. But some of it is developed. I would say a lot of it is developed based on your just normal habits, right? And so the mental toughness comes into play when you're like, man, I just don't feel like going outside because it's too cold right now. It's like, yeah, you might not, and you know what? Do you need to? Probably not, but it does go to that element of like, I rode in 17-degree weather.
I saw that.
Mostly because I was desperate to get outside. Yep. But it did make me think about that when I was in it. I was like, man, this is actually, it's not as terrible as I thought it was going to be. But I had an issue with keeping my feet warm. And I know you had a hack on this. And actually, you're doing a video on this.
I did, yeah.
What did you find?
You want me to reveal the hack?
Yeah.
Okay. So
we'll link to it in this. We'll link to it in the pod.
Yeah, we'll have a link in the pod. So I've been trying to keep. I think I said it a few weeks ago. Keeping your feet warm. I've tried I've tried wrapping my feet in aluminum foil, but basically the foil breaks in the shoe and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So cycling shoes, and I kind of mentioned this in the video and I explain it. They're designed to vent.
Yes.
They're designed to let cool air in. So even when you have good shoe covers. Like my shoes have vents on the bottom that let air come up. And I never realized that until I'm like, why are my feet so freaking cold? So my hack is I take out the insoles and I cut out, and I put them on some foil and cut them into the shape of the insole. And I put that foil underneath the shoe insole to make a protective like thermal barrier. Oh, and then I've also tried, before I was using like ski socks. And a friend was like, use like hiking socks instead. They're a little bit thinner and they allow a little bit of airflow. And then with that, I found some toe warmers, and I basically put toe warmers on the top and the bottom of my feet to just make them hot. Yeah.
And it worked?
It worked. I went out in 20 degrees 2 weeks ago for an hour and 40 minutes and had zero, like my body from just sweat was getting cool. My feet were fine. Oh, and normally in 40-degree weather,
your toes are getting
cold.
At
an hour, my toes are getting cold. Like that cafe ride we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, your toes.
At an hour, I was like, my toes are freezing.
Yeah.
And so
I just thought mentally you weren't tough. And so,
that's it. No. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm with you there. That is a struggle. I also struggle with my fingers too. That's a challenge. But
you should do a video on finger hacks then, like how to keep your finger. Well, you should
wrap them in aluminum foil. The problematic, if I ever take my hands out of my glove. I was also thinking about you had some rest days in your training, so tell me about that.
Yeah, so last week I did an interval day and I texted Derek. It was like I just couldn't finish the last interval set, or I just had to bail out of the workout early. Like my legs were just fatigued on Friday, and Derek was like, no big deal. Like he adjusted my schedule. He's like, I'm going to give you some rest days, like take them.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me mentally. I feel like I can sit here on paper and say, yeah, rest days are really important and you need to have rest. But there's a psychological part when you take a day off or 2 days off when you're like, oh, I'm losing all my fitness. Like it's all like the last 2 months have gone to crap. Yeah. And I kind of kept having to remind myself like, that's not true.
Right.
Rest days are really important and allowing your body to recover, because if your body's not recovered, you're not going to have effective, good intervals anyway.
Yep.
And so he gave me a Friday off, and he said, if you take Saturday off too, or ride do one of those half day rides. And we did a lot of traveling, so the day was off. And then I rode Sunday and felt great.
Felt fine.
And then he gave me a rest day on Monday, and I was like, okay, like. Yep. It's a busy week ahead. I'm going to try to sleep in a little bit.
Sure. So, hey, there you go.
So yeah, what about you? What's been so you said the handling?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about
as far as training goes, like what?
So training, the thing I've been thinking about, and this was a tip from our coach, was getting into more of an aero position, and specifically inside on my trainer. So I have a tri bike that's. My trainer, my TacX, is not compatible with my road bike, unfortunately. Just
Shimano SRAM thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But then, well, even just the it doesn't support the SRAM 12 speed.
Yeah.
So I would have to buy a whole new trainer to do that. So anyways, all that being said is my tri bike, I'm obviously can get into an aero position on it, but it's not the same as a road bike, right? So when I'm outside getting into an aero position, Derek mentioned that like if you want to get better, if you want to get faster, get more aero. And we had a video where you actually shot him the other day where it was like him just riding.
Yeah.
And you could see his arms on his bars. He's just almost in like a perfect L.
Yeah.
But very comfortable, very relaxed, back fairly flat. And when I ride, typically I'm more upright. So that idea of getting out and really trying to practice that, and that will continue to be something that I'll have to work on a lot.
Yeah.
Because that will help me get better in racing. And that will also help me get better to be able to produce more watts at, if I can get more comfortable with it, I'm using a lot less effort than other people would, simply by being more aero. And so I've seen the benefits of being super aero with a TT bike. Now I want to be as good as possible doing that on the road bike as well. And I've historically haven't done that. And so I'm excited to really spend time trying to practice getting into that more comfortable, more aero position, but it's going to take some time. So part of my emphasis for getting outside for the training was to do that and just to start working on it. So it felt okay. I think.
How long were you able to hold it at any given time? 2-3 minutes, and then you got to come up and rest your shoulders?
Yeah, the only challenge with it's not a challenge, I should say. It's just more of like the comfort level of it is like if you've got rolling hills or if you're going up a little climb or something like that, because my ride wasn't 100% flat. Sure. I was just getting outside and keeping it mostly zone 2, but it's like the idea of it was like just trying to hold it for 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. Okay. And felt fairly comfortable, but it's almost that mental, I'm easily back up.
Yeah.
Just based on habit. It's an interesting tip. It's also difficult to do in practice if you're not used to it and if you haven't done that.
One thing I would add, because Derek has had similar conversations with me, is if you're going to practice it, do it on your zone 2 rides.
Yes.
Do it on your easy, long. Don't go when you're trying to push threshold watt intervals. Don't try it on those days. Try it when you can practice really long segments. Agreed. And then that way when you're in a race scenario or in a fast-paced racy group ride, then you can hold it for a few minutes because you've practiced it.
Yep.
So you don't need to try it on interval days. Do it on a zone 2 ride.
And you can even practice it up hills too. Now we're getting into our segment of a rapid fire. And I'm going to kick it over to you.
Okay.
What kind of tech do you want to see? Since we've talked about...
Overpriced handlebars.
Oh, interesting. I love that.
No. All right. Tech that I would like to see. 2 things. I want to see automatic shifting for Di2 or ETAP. So at first I was like, no one would use this. But then as we've had erg mode discussions, I want to see, so on my computer, I get my trainer road workout or whatever in my Wahoo and I hit start. And then I can just set it to automatic shifting. So if I'm holding an interval at threshold, based off my cadence and my power, it just puts me in the gear where I don't have to cycle through the gears to figure it out. So it's like erg mode for outside riding. I think that'd be really cool.
I definitely would gravitate towards that.
Would I race with that? No, but would it be a cool thing, especially with what the current shifting can kind of already do?
Yeah.
I think it'd be a cool thing. I also think, and I think Garmin's got some patents for this, but I'd love to see some self-charging electronic shifting, whether it's SRAM or Garmin. I don't really care who, but like if my Prius, when I brake, can take kinetic energy and create heat and charge my batteries, why can't the brake calipers as you brake really hard take that heat and somehow transfer it to the drivetrain shifting?
Yeah.
That'd be really cool where as cool as the handlebars are, less things to charge. Now, in my mind, because the one variable is if you're riding inside and not braking, sure, you could still maybe plug it in, maybe an internal battery like the pedals we have. But something where you're out on the road and it self-charges. Garmin's been doing that. They've got this solar-powered head units that like the sun hits them and
Correct.
the battery, it doesn't like charge it up, but it makes the battery last significantly long.
Yep,
maybe that's how those handlebars are going to get that 30 hours is solar powered.
Solar powered.
Maybe that's it. But no, those are the two things right now I'd love to see.
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I actually I love both of those ideas. Those are actually really great ideas. So somebody take those and run with them because those are great ideas. All right, so fastest descent you've ever done?
Yeah, 49.6 miles per hour.
You knew the 0.6 too?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in Gatlinburg in the Parkway. So not in the park, like outside the park on just this up and down road. And I was able, like real flat, or not flat, but just straight, great section of road to just go. My goal is to somehow safely break 50. Haven't found the great hill here to do that. There's one hill, but it's got a bend, so I don't ever try it. What about you?
Mine was 50.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Dang it.
It was, I don't know the exact number, but to be honest, I think the fastest I've probably have gone would be somewhere in that, like maybe 43 miles an hour.
Okay.
And this would have been on a straight downhill.
Yeah.
And this is back in Phoenix, and there was this neighborhood in Paradise Valley that we used to ride with a bunch of guys, and it was a sweet downhill. This thing it went forever.
Yes.
The problem was they had a stop sign halfway through. So most of the guys just blew through that thing. We were always riding crazy early. So we'd start at 5:30, and arguably most people aren't going to work yet in this neighborhood. But that was a great descent because when you went through this, I think that was one of my top speeds, was probably in that 43-ish.
Yeah.
And it was, I get a little nervous around that speed.
I need to throw this out for my family that listens. I don't try to break land speed records. And when I hit 49.6, it was on a phenomenal stretch of what you described, a road that went forever.
Just went straight.
There's nothing around where I live. And I'm not a very gutsy rider. Like, I don't take a lot of descending risks at all. I'm very conservative. So to hit that, no, I'm not Pidcock. So to hit speeds like that, it was a just super long stretch.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I've got one for you.
Okay.
What is the weirdest thing you've seen out on a ride?
You already know this because it's the same for us.
Yep.
It should be at least. So we were out riding, and we were on a bike trail.
Yes.
And it was the Vespa. It was the lady on the Vespa. I was flabbergasted.
On the trail.
Trail.
We saw a lady on a Vespa.
Yes.
Like we rode.
To be clear, she was
her.
on the trail. I've never seen a Vespa on that bike trail. And she was just chilling.
No shame.
No shame.
Like, I deserve to be here. All right.
I remember our conversation afterwards was, did we just see a Vespa on the bike trail? I couldn't make heads or tails of what the thought process was going through her mind, where it's not something you do. And
no.
That was definitely the strangest thing I've ever seen.
To put it in a little context for people that don't live in this area. So the trail we have is, here's the best way to describe it. If you Zwift, it is equivalent to that Tempest Fugere route, just that flat route that goes forever, that's always overpopulated with people, where you see tons of cyclists on all kinds of bikes and runners. That is our trail here.
Yep.
It is overcrowded, and you've got runners, rollerbladers, dog walkers, cyclists, triathletes, the craziest kind of bikes, and a Vespa, apparently. It
would be like seeing on that route in Zwift, it'd be like seeing a motorcycle.
Yes.
And you're like,
why is there a motorcycle in Zwift?
What? All right, last question. Favorite food to eat after a ride? So any given ride. You're just riding outside, whatever, or come back. The trainer, what's your favorite food to eat after a ride?
So I'm gonna say Saturday mornings. Get home and I'll do my recovery shake, and then I make myself and my kids, like, I make a family breakfast. So I'll do like omelets and toast, and
so your kids are starving because it's like 11 a.m.
They do like a pre-breakfast snack. Yeah.
Please, Dad, make us food.
But that's like my go-to. Like I'm in our house, I'm not a good cook, but I'm the breakfast guy.
I like
so
you're the breakfast guy.
I'm the breakfast guy of the house. Like I do all the any type of egg.
You're not Dad. You're the breakfast guy.
I'm the breakfast guy. Yeah, that's right. So Geta, bacon, like all of it. Like we'll do big breakfast.
You do it right.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I love that.
What about you?
Pizza. It's so simple. I'm a simple guy.
Wait.
My favorite thing to eat after. So to specify. I'm thinking Saturday mornings or Saturday like group rides or something like that where you come back. Our tradition right now is we typically do pizzas Friday nights. So Kat and I will do like, pizza. We'll go out for pizza or just order or whatever. And so we always have leftover pizza on Saturday.
Movie night in with pizza. Okay.
Yeah. And so we'll always have leftover pizza on Saturday. And every single time I'm done with that ride, I'm always thinking about, that slice of pizza sounds real good right now.
Okay, so at first when you said that, I thought, wait a minute, you wake up at 4, so then you just at 7 a.m. are eating pizza?
How much pizza are you having a week?
Is Papa John's open yet?
Yeah. Hey, it's Josh again. Please get here soon.
I'll have my usual 8 a.m. meal. Okay, so no, that makes way more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, just to clarify. All right, so we want to hear from you guys. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below. What kind of tech would you guys love to see? What did you think at the Flite Deck conversation and our takes on it?
And fastest descent speed.
Ooh, I like it.
Throw that out there too.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.